Westwood One presents America at Night. Here's your host, McGraw Millhaven.
On a Thursday night, thanks for joining us, and we got a packed show for you. Of course, it's phone calls in hour number 3, so we always look forward to that. Also, Bill Clevlin is on the road. Bill on the road Thursday night. He'll check in with his normal Thursday segment. Also in hour number 2, Jonathan Horn is going to be joining us, former White House presidential speechwriter in the Bush administration. He, of course, a columnist for the Free Press. He has 2 great columns, one about Thomas Paine and the other one about Teddy Roosevelt. So we'll talk to Jonathan Horn about that. He's a great storyteller, so we'll get into that with him in hour number 2. Kellie Meyer, the NewsNation White House correspondent, is going to join us a little bit later on in this hour. But starting us off tonight is Herb Schreiber. Herb Schreiber is a health reporter for the website Axios, and he wrote a very interesting article the other day about the Havana Syndrome. Now, what exactly is the Havana Syndrome? Well, diplomats and government workers around the world have been puzzled for years, and it may or may not have been used, this device used, in the attack in Venezuela. But to find out more about the Havana Syndrome, we bring in Herb Schreiber. Herb, welcome to America at Night. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
It sounds like a science fiction movie, but let's start with the news that you uncovered, or that has come out, and that is that we think, I mean, there's a lot we don't know, but we think the U.S. government has obtained the box or the device that creates this Havana Syndrome?
Yeah, so CNN reported the other day that the Pentagon may have discovered a device that causes this Havana Syndrome. The cause of it has been puzzling researchers for years, which I know you, like you were just saying. And so, yeah, it kind of stood out as a major headline. And according to that report, the Defense Department spent more than a year testing a device that they believed, or that some people believed, could make people sick with Havana Syndrome. And I guess it was discovered in an undercover operation, and it sounds like officials might have paid close to 8 figures for it. And, the Pentagon's been investigating Havana Syndrome for a while and investigating the reports of it. And so, yeah, this is one of those, every now and again, this comes up in the news every now and again, and this is one of those times where there's another big development in terms of, what might cause it, what's really going on with this kind of syndrome. And so, yeah, this is a pretty major turn for the investigation into it.
Let's go back to the beginning. I first heard about it, or first started being reported, I guess, back in the teens. And it was, the U.S. Embassy in Cuba, in which some of our officials started to come down with some of these symptoms?
Yeah, so that's kind of where the first kind of reports, at least the early enough reports that maybe that people can point to, at least, because you never know where something really starts and everything like that. But yeah, American officials became ill while at the U.S. Embassy in Cuba in 2016. There were some reports out there that maybe in 2014, and I think those reports were referring to more as sonic attacks. And this, but the incidents in Cuba were the ones that really kind of lifted the discussion. And since then, it's been almost yearly. There's some kind of report that'll come out with someone or an official or somebody kind of mentioning the experiencing the symptoms, and then from there, it's usually there's more investigations, or it just adds to the collection of information about the syndrome.
Yeah, the Havana Syndrome, again, sounds like a Netflix series that just dropped, and the symptoms of it sound like out of a science fiction movie from the 80s, because it's, it's a science fiction device. What are some of the symptoms that sort of pop up around the world from time to time?
Yeah, and you're totally right with that. When I did my first, I wrote about this maybe 4 years ago. And I remember when I first read about it and read the symptoms, it was very much you can almost understand what the experience is like, but like you'd almost see it in the movie, like you said, and a lot of the symptoms that people report are, ear popping, so your ear will pop, maybe some vertigo, pounding headaches, nausea, and then like a piercing directional noise. And so, yeah, that's kind of the experience. You can kind of almost visualize how that would be, and you could see how like maybe a movie producer would put it together. But yeah, it's actually these are actual symptoms that people are actually experiencing in real life.
And since it was first sort of discovered or acknowledged in 2016 in Cuba, it has popped up in different places around the world, has it not?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually kind of surprising how many places it's popped up. I mean, just from what I've, in my reporting, what I saw was that it's popped up in China, India, Austria, Vietnam, I believe Paris and Geneva. There was one official at the Pentagon who claimed to experience it in Lithuania. There was also a report, notably in 2022, where Kamala Harris, who was vice president at the time, she delayed a trip to Vietnam after there were reports of an incident that many thought might be Havana Syndrome. So, yeah, it's been all over the world.
Do you recover from it, or are you permanently injured by it? Or do we know?
I don't know if we know that. The National Institutes of Health have found there was no evidence of any MRI detectable brain injury from the syndrome, despite like the issues that it causes. But I know that officials, like people who have experienced it, will still talk about it years later, and I don't think we know necessarily the long-term impact of the syndrome.
When it has appeared, it seems like it's not widespread, right? It's like one or two or three people, right? It isn't like a room full of people all of a sudden started getting headaches and bleeding from their nose and ears and eyes.
Correct. Yeah, it's definitely more on the side of like, someone or basically one individual might experience it and then report their symptoms later. But it's, yeah, like you said, it's not like there's like a huge group of people who are suddenly falling ill. A lot of these reports come out, with people kind of describing their symptoms after the fact, and that's where we get a lot of the information.
So this is back in the news for a couple of reasons. One, because you said they've at least, what has the government said? What has the Pentagon said? That they acknowledged that they have purchased something from somewhere that may or may not be connected to this Havana Syndrome?
They did not, at least to me. They did not comment on the story to me. From what I've seen, I don't think anyone's actually commented on this reporting. But yeah, a lot of it is tied back to the CNN report on the syndrome. But there's still not a lot of information from the government on what might have happened there.
Right, but the government has acknowledged that there have been some diplomats and some government officials who have come down with this Havana Syndrome, have they not?
Oh, yes. It's definitely been acknowledged, and it's definitely been, out there. I think there's been some dispute over, whether you can call it Havana Syndrome, and I think there's always that kind of like apprehension to maybe like, just kind of, because of the science fiction-y name, sounding name of it. There's another, it's also called another name that, some officials have called it is AHI, which is an anomalous health incidents. That's another way that it's been described as well. But yeah, it's definitely been out there. It's been circling for a while, and it's become definitely a conversation point among officials and reporters. Yeah.
We keep going back to this science fiction angle because the more you read about it and the more you hear about it, the more it does sound science fiction. So we're not just making this up, but it does sound like a movie. So they purchased, or the story goes, it's a small device, fits in the back of your pocket. What do we know about this device? Does it have one button? Does it have a speaker? What do we know about this thing that they allegedly bought? Yeah,
so from what we know, and this is all based on the CNN report, and I definitely recommend people go read it. The device that it produces like these radio waves, and those radio waves are what many believe are causing the incidence of the syndrome. And according to the sources that CNN talked to, it might have contained some Russian components. And, the officials are still kind of wondering, like, how could a device like that causes, like, the damage that the syndrome, causes, like, how something portable could even have that ability. And so that's why it's, like, kind of like this, it's kind of this, like, that's like a core question of it. And then on the top of that, the device, but like you said, the device can fit inside of a backpack in terms of size. So that's what's puzzling officials is, if it is something that causes Havana syndrome and causes these symptoms, like how could something like that's portable be able to do that? And
Yeah. So then the last question is, it's also in the news because there have been some reports, and I don't know if it's internet rumors or TikTok videos, but there have been some rumors swirling that when the United States went into Caracas to get Maduro, there have been some reports of people saying that the soldiers all fell down, they all had headaches, they all started bleeding from their nose, and they were incapacitated, and the American soldiers just walked in and took Maduro. Any evidence of that to be true in any way, shape, or form, that the U.S. used something like this?
I haven't seen that, or I haven't heard that, I should say, in my reporting. I have seen articles that have been mentioning that, and I know there has been some speculation brought up that could be a thing. I think that there were some officials who suggested it was like a plausible scenario that they used a sonic device, but I haven't heard that specifically. I haven't been told that, so I wouldn't necessarily. I wouldn't say that I've, in an official capacity, have been told that, but I have read those reports. So that is an interesting situation if that were the case. But yeah, I haven't heard anything on that from my end.
Yeah, well, crazy story. Herb Scribner with us from Axios. Go check out the story about the Havana Syndrome. Herb, thanks for joining us on a Thursday night. Great stuff. We'll be watching you on Axios.com. Have a good night. Thanks.
Thank you. You too.
You got it. Herb Schreiber from Axios. So listen to this. According to his story at Axios.com, U.S. officials estimate there have been at least 1,500 cases of the Havana Syndrome in 96 countries. That's according to CNN. There's also been suspected cases in China, India, Austria, and Vietnam. The Wall Street Journal reported in 2022 that officials serving in Paris and Geneva were hit by the illness too. And in a 2023 NATO summit in Lithuania, a Pentagon official claimed to have experienced symptoms of the Havana Syndrome. So there you go. I don't know what to tell you, but and I am certainly not a conspiracy theorist, but it sounds like a pretty good Netflix series to me, right? The Havana Syndrome. And then on top of the fact that some of these sort of strange stories are starting to appear from some Venezuelans that the Americans came in and did something that sort of paralyzed them, and the Americans walked right in and got Maduro. So who knows? We'll wait and see what happens. But there you go. That's the latest. Hey, it's time to live a better digital life with our partner, Webroot. New year, new devices, new you, and a new peace of mind. Get help protecting your device's identity and your privacy in 2026. This is important. You want to choose protection that fits your life with Webroot Essentials or Webroot Total Protection. Webroot makes it easy to choose the protection that's right for you. Now, do you have a new device? Webroot Essentials delivers lightning-fast antivirus plus password manager and Web Threat Shield, helping protect your devices, your personal info, and your passwords from malware, ransomware, and more. We chose Webroot Total Protection because it's an all-in-one device, privacy and identity protection that takes the guesswork out of cybersecurity and antivirus identity protection, VPN, cloud backup. Webroot, the Total Protection helps keep our entire digital life protected with one prescription. New year, new device. Now, whether you're planning on upgrading tech or sticking with what you've got, now is the time to protect all of you and your family's devices at 60% off Webroot's total trusted cybersecurity solutions. This year, choose the protection that's right for you. Visit webroot.com/AAN. That's webroot.com/AAN for 60% off. That's webroot.com/AAN. America at Night. Webroot.com/AAN for 60% off Webroot.
America at Night with McGraw Millhaven, where the nation comes to talk. This is America at Night with McGraw Millhaven.
Hey, how much would you pay to have a computer drive your car for you? Tesla announced today that they are going to now sell the full self-driving software for a flat rate instead of a monthly subscription. Or it was a flat rate. Now they're offering it for a monthly subscription. You could pay $99 a month for the car to drive itself. I'm sorry. I'll spend a subscription for just about anything. But $99 a month for some computer to drive my car? It's false. One thing I don't get is this driverless car. The one-time price was $8,000. Apparently nobody was buying it, so now they're switching it to $99 a month. Isn't half the fun driving? Isn't driving cars kind of fun? Isn't it kind of enjoyable? I guess if you're going across country, maybe you'd want someone to drive for you. I don't know. I don't get this driverless cars. But there you go. It's coming, and you have to pay $99 a month for the car to drive itself. Very bizarre. Hey, stay right there. Coming up next segment, we're checking with Kellie Meyer, NewsNation White House correspondent. A lot going on at the White House. Trump released some type of health care plan. He met with Chuck Schumer. He still wants to bomb Greenland. Apparently, he just received the Nobel Prize. All that and more with Kellie Meyer from NewsNation in just a moment. America at Night. Stay right there.
Relax. You're listening to America at Night with McGraw Millhaven. Welcome to America at Night with McGraw Millhaven.
Hey, welcome back. The news is happening so fast. When we invited our guest, Kellie Meyer, the NewsNation White House correspondent, to join us, that was 17 news cycles ago, and we asked her to come on the show earlier this morning. Kellie Meyer, after a long and crazy day at the White House with NewsNation, thanks for spending a couple minutes with us tonight.
Of course, a lot of news happening, as you said.
Let's get to the award presentation. Apparently, Donald Trump has received the Nobel Prize tonight.
Yeah, so the Venezuelan opposition leader had said that she gave her Nobel Peace Prize to the president, and then a White House official later on this evening telling me that that the president did accept it. So, but the committee was saying that you could give the prize, but the actual title remains with who received it. But she did give that to the president today when she met with him. She came into the White House around noon Eastern and didn't leave until around 2:30 p.m. Eastern. So they spent a lot of time together, but we don't know exactly what they discussed. But she did spend a lot of time, and it seemed like the meeting went well.
Is this like if somebody gets Sean Penn's Oscar, they can hold Sean Penn's Oscar, but it was still given to Sean Penn?
Yeah, I think that's kind of how it goes, yeah.
Okay, all right, good enough. Let's get to some serious news, and that is Kellie Meyer with NewsNation. What do we know, and how close was President Trump to bombing Iran?
Yeah, that's exactly what I asked the White House press secretary today during today's briefing. And, I try to say, how close was the president to doing this? Did someone change his mind? Was he really going to go through with this? And then I was having reporting from, people in the region that it was the Persian Gulf, that it was the Saudis, the Qataris that convinced the president not to do it, saying to give Iran a chance. Then there was also some reporting my sources were telling me within the administration saying that strikes wouldn't really take down the regime completely and could lead to a wider escalation in the region. We know that he spoke with Netanyahu, the prime minister of Israel, but there are many people that think he should do something, including the people in Iran. And Iranian Americans that I've been hearing from on X have been very vocal that the killing has not stopped, even though the White House press secretary told me today that 800 people were not executed today, 800 lives were saved, but they're saying that's not nearly enough. And she also said the only person that knows what President Trump is going to do is President Trump and a small group around him of his advisors. But she did tell me that he is keeping all of his options on the table and continuing to watch this. So the story really isn't over, and it definitely is something to watch.
Yeah, something happened in Iran because the protests were, I don't know, I mean, again, getting information out of Iran is very hard, but yeah. Just looking and noticing, it seems like the protests were significantly reduced. They ended up not killing that protester who was sentenced to death. So it seems like Iran, something happened in the last 24 hours or so.
And, we don't know exactly what. I was also talking with people, responding to this story. It's been getting such a reaction from people in the U.S. and around the world, really, saying that, there are people, the protests maybe have quelled, but they're still going on. And many of the people are afraid to leave their homes now because of the crackdown by the authorities. So we don't know exactly what this is going to look like, if they will erupt again. And many people don't believe whatever the president had said, that the killing has stopped, that he heard it from a good authority. Many people don't believe that that's true.
Yeah, the other thing, too, is I think you hit it on the nail on the head with some of the advice he's getting is what's the strategy? What's the plan? What's the goal here? Because just indiscriminate bombing of some buildings or some power plants or some nuclear facilities.
Right.
What's the goal here? And you don't want to make it worse. You want to make it better. But how do you make it better?
Right, and it's much different than what we saw over the summer with Operation Midnight Hammer, and that's when he sent those B-2 bombers from Whiteman Air Force Base over to Iran and took out the 3 nuclear facilities. They came back. Iran hit back at our base in Doha, but that was it, and it was done. This is much different. It's taking down a regime, potentially, if that's what he's thinking, getting involved, intervening in these protests. And Iran has warned of the consequences if they do, not only the U.S. military bases in the region, which they have been removing personnel from, I've confirmed, but also in Israel, too. So that's why it was interesting to hear that he spoke with Netanyahu, and it seems as though Netanyahu also urged him not to strike. But I do think this is something to watch because I also confirmed with a source that they are moving this aircraft carrier, the USS Abraham Lincoln, from the South China Sea to the Middle East. So I think that shows that they are repositioning their because they moved a lot of that down there for Venezuela and kind of left the Middle East with not as much. So they are starting to reposition that. That could take at least a week. So that's why I say I do think this is something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Around the world we go with Kellie Meyer, White House correspondent for NewsNation. Greenland came to the White House, and apparently those meetings didn't go very well. What can you tell us about what happened today with that?
Yeah, there was a big meeting with Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Vice President J.D. Vance, very much involved in this possible acquisition, as the president would call it, wants to acquire Greenland. He hasn't ruled out taking it with military force. And it's caused a lot of concern because, Greenland belongs to Denmark, and Denmark is a NATO country, and there's no such situation where, a NATO country goes after another NATO country. That would completely just get rid of NATO entirely. So there's a lot of questions around what exactly the mission is here. Definitely getting some pushback from the country, but it is getting a lot of interest from those in Europe. But the president keeps saying he wants it because of national security. And he says if we don't get it, China or Russia will get it. And this has been something the president really has been talking about all year, But it really came back into focus after what happened in Venezuela. And the president kind of cast his net wider, saying, Colombia better watch out, Cuba better watch out, and even Greenland better watch out. So it's definitely something to watch as well.
So it seems like, and with Greenland, or I wish Denmark pushing back, and some others in Europe pushing back, it seems like full steam ahead. I mean, Trump's sort of rattling the cages with his sort of bombastic talk, but it seems like the choice that is at Trump's feet, or his decision, is, do you want Greenland or do you want NATO? Because it seems like you can't have both.
Right. And also, it seems like the people of Greenland, the Greenlanders, have said they really don't want to become a part of the United States. This is something that a lot of people have a lot of opinions on. And I don't know if there's some sort of agreement they could come to, or if this is something that he forgets about, but he hasn't forgot about it all year. He's bringing it into 2026, so it doesn't seem like it's going to be something that he's going to let go of easily.
Kellie Meyer with us for a couple more minutes. She's a White House correspondent for NewsNation, has her finger on the pulse of all this stuff. Minnesota. Another hot spot. Tim Walz, the mayor of Minnesota, sent what appears to be a letter to Donald Trump saying, hey, it's time to ratchet this down. What's the White House saying about Minnesota?
The White House is really pushing back strongly. They did in that briefing today, and they believe that they have the right to be there. They were pushing back on all of the protests, and they believe, they see it as Walz and others, the mayor there, they're the ones ratcheting this up. They say their language, their rhetoric is dangerous. These are people that are just trying to go in and take what they say are criminals out of the country. But, Walz sees it differently, and they say they don't want, the city of Minneapolis doesn't want ICE in their city. But we are still continuing to see those protests. Even tonight, our reporter on the ground said that they were stealing guns from an FBI vehicle. So it really is something that the president has been really keeping an eye on, too, here in the United States, and has floated potentially invoking the Insurrection Act, which he has talked about previously. And that would mean that he could use the military on U.S. soil and bring them in to assist in this situation. And that's something he hasn't ruled out, and we don't know exactly what he might do on that.
Again, he's known to sort of throw everything to the wall. He tends to sort of talk about all sorts of things, following through on some of them, not following through on other things. When you float the word insurrection, that's another line that has, never been crossed, or hasn't been crossed for a long time. I mean, are they, what's their goal? How much longer is ICE going to be there? How many more days does ICE need before they take everybody they want to take who is here undocumented?
It's a really good question, and I don't think we know. That would have been a good question for the briefing today, too, to find out, what is the end goal here, but it doesn't seem like they're leaving anytime soon.
Kellie Meyer, a couple more questions here. Did Chuck Schumer and President Trump meet today at the White House?
They did. I was able to get that scoop that Senator Chuck Schumer was at the White House meeting with President Trump, and they discussed a few things. Sorry, I'm also in my Uber just leaving the White House, so I can just go up here and I'll just jump out. We just got out and finished our live shot. We're heading home. Right here is perfect. But Chuck Schumer was at the White House. He put out a readout of what they talked about. Of course, President Trump would say something else of what they talked about, but Schumer did say he talked with him about ICE, pushed back on that, so they need to leave these communities. He also talked with him about health care and the ACAs. So they talked about a range of things. It seemed like he was going there for health care. The president, Schumer said that the president requested the meeting because they wanted to talk about I think it's the Gateway Project in New York, and that was the initial reason for it. But we don't know. And it was also interesting because we thought we were going to hear from Schumer. Normally he comes out and talks with the press when he comes to the White House, and does a little bit of what we call a gaggle, but he didn't do that, which I thought was interesting because nothing really gets between Senator Chuck Schumer and a microphone. So he must have wanted to keep this private, or what they discussed kind of behind the scenes, rather than share it, which normally he would.
It's such a bizarre relationship. They knew each other before he was president, right? They were friendly in some ways when they were from New York. He becomes president. They say the most disrespectful things to each other when the cameras are on, when they're at each other's throats at the podium. You turn the lights off, you turn the cameras off, you close the door, and I suspect they're the best of friends inside the Oval Office.
Yeah, I mean, And that's honestly, for a reporter for myself that has been covering Washington, D.C. for a decade, that's really kind of how it goes here, or how it is for what we see behind the scenes. We see them getting along and chit-chatting on the Senate floor, or, even when Mamdani, the New York City mayor, was here. And now there's reporting that they talk twice a week and text twice a week, and they were at each other's throats not too long ago. So politics is an interesting world and an interesting game, but at the end of the day, they may be working towards the same thing and the same goals. So maybe it does give people hope that they do work together in some ways. Maybe they are coming together more than we think, but we'll never know exactly what was said behind those closed doors today.
Kellie Meyer, one more. Did Donald Trump float a health care plan today?
He did. That is something that he is pushing for. Honestly, there was so much news today. I know a little bit about it. I was mostly focused on Iran, but I do know that was also something he pushed out there. He's going to have an event tomorrow at the White House more about health care. I can tell you that, around 10 a.m. And then I also know that there are also some governors coming to the White House tomorrow, too, from various states, and they're going to be talking about energy costs. So really, I think overall, for folks to know, it's a focus for the president both on health care and on energy costs, all a part of his push to make things more affordable. That's really his message going into the midterms.
You can't get any more up-to-the-date information from Kellie Meyer of NewsNation. She's in her Uber leaving the White House, and she calls us with the latest information. Kellie Meyer, 1,000 thank yous on a crazy day at work for you to take a couple minutes and check in with us tonight. We really do appreciate it. Be safe. Make sure you tip the Uber driver, and we will talk to you soon. Thank you, Kellie Meyer.
Of course. Thank you.
You got it. Kellie Meyer, she's one of the good ones right there in the trenches getting the news for us. So wonderful. NewsNation got a good one there with Kellie Meyer, White House correspondent from NewsNation. So it's he's got Iran on his plate. He's got he's got Greenland that he's choosing to put on his plate. Apparently, he was offered the Nobel Prize today. He's got Minnesota. He's got Trump healthcare that he sort of floated out, and he's meeting with Chuck Schumer. That's a full day. Holy mackerel! That's a lid on out of the White House. Hey, next hour, stay right there. We're going to do a little history lesson. Thomas Paine, the man who wrote Common Sense, the pamphlet, the podcast of its day, the Instagram of its day, the newspaper of its day, the talk radio of its day. It turns 250 years. It just passed its 250th anniversary. Thomas Paine, the first blogger, if you will, maybe, right? The first one that got famous, the first one that got a deal. You think Joe Rogan's the first? No. It was Thomas Paine. We'll come back and talk about that. And what about Venezuela and Theodore Roosevelt? So we're going to do a little history lesson next hour. And then Bill on the road. Bill is still somewhere in Palm Springs, California. So we got that coming up next hour. And then, of course, phone calls in hour number 3. Stay right there. America at Night. Back in a moment.
From the heart of America, this is America at Night with McGraw Millhaven. This is America at Night with McGraw Millhaven.
Hey, I've been railing on this maybe since Christmas, and that is ever since Christmas or so, Grok, which is the Twitter artificial intelligence app, that they debuted this new technology where you can pick any picture you want off the internet, and you can manipulate it and Photoshop it to create pornography. You can take a child's picture from an innocent website, an innocent page, an innocent post, and send it into this Twitter, Elon Musk-owned Twitter artificial intelligence app, and you can turn it into child pornography. Anybody can do it. You just need a phone, computer. And people are horrified by this, but apparently people running Twitter having a hard time turning it off. And I haven't used it. I haven't seen it. I've just been reading the stories of the people it's been abusing. And today in Washington, the Senate passed a bipartisan bill called the Defiance Act, which would create a federal civil right of action for victims who are victims of this non-consensual material. Right? It's not just children. It's anybody, woman who's on the beach with her husband, or it could be anything. They could turn any picture into pornography without the consent of the person who took the picture or the consent of the person who's in the picture. And you can only imagine how awful that is. So it was a bipartisan bill passed in the Senate that would, I guess, try and curtail this. AOC, one of the sponsors of this, who is a deep fake target herself, says more and more teenage girls are becoming victims of this harassment. And the law will take effect in May, has to be picked up by the House and signed by the White House, right past the Senate. We'll wait and see how long it takes for this thing to pass. Well, I don't have a whole lot of confidence that even this will pass, because if you owned an app and were in charge of an app that turned innocent pictures into pornography, wouldn't you shut it down? Why don't they just shut it down? Why do you need a law to shut that down? This is the richest man in the world who's running this app. Go figure. Stay right there. We'll talk a little Thomas Paine, a little history lesson, plus Bill on the road next hour. Stay right there. Our executive director is Alex Hinton. Our engineer tonight is Richard Good. I'm McGraw Millhaven, and this is America at Night on Westwood One.
Westwood One presents America at Night. Here's your host, McGraw Millhaven.
Let's get right to it. Last week, 2 weeks ago, we had a guest on, the author of the book, The Fate of the Generals, MacArthur, Wainwright, and the Epic Battle for the Philippines. His name was Jonathan Horn. He was a speechwriter for the Bush administration. He's also a columnist for the Free Press, and we had so much fun with him, we thought we'd invite him back to talk about his column on the Free Press. Jonathan Horn, welcome back to America at Night.
Thanks so much for having me.
Let's talk about Thomas Paine. You wrote an article in the Free Press about Thomas Paine. Reading the article, I guess he was the first blogger of the American Revolution. Who is Thomas Paine?
Well, Thomas Paine wrote the best-selling pamphlet of the American Revolution, and that was Common Sense. And it came out 250 years ago this month, and it made the case that America should be an independent country. And it's hard for us to believe, but in January 1776, we have this expression on the internet that someone said the quiet part out loud. And people were still afraid to say what was then common sense, that America should be independent. And he had the courage to publish a pamphlet and lay out the case for why America should be independent.
Who was Thomas Paine, and how did he get this crazy idea at the time to write all this stuff down?
Well, that's a great question, because Thomas Paine was an English immigrant. He had only been in America for a short time, barely a year, when he published Common Sense. He had been the son of a corset maker in eastern England, and he pretty much had failed at everything he had tried to do in his life before. He had tried his hand into being a corset maker himself, failed. He had tried to become a sailor. He had failed. He had tried to become a tax collector, of all things, on breweries, and he had failed. And then he came to America. He became a magazine editor, and someone recognized he had talent, and that someone was Benjamin Franklin, who had a good eye for talent. And it was suggested that he take on this task of writing a pamphlet to make the case for independence, and that became Common Sense.
Yeah, he was also a printer, so maybe he was making a little side hustle for himself, printing these things.
Well, he didn't make too much money off the pamphlet because he said he would donate the proceeds to the American Revolution, but it was also at a time when copyright was not like it was today. The pamphlet spread like wildfire back then, and we don't know the exact number it sold. Thomas Paine himself thought it sold 150,000 copies. Some people today think the number was less than that, but either way, this was by far and away the bestseller of the American Revolution, and it wasn't just the number of copies it sold. It was also that when people bought a copy, they would share it with their family members and with their relatives, and they would read it at home and in taverns, and the message spread everywhere.
So it was like the first viral articles, I guess, huh?
That's the perfect way to put it. In some way, it was like the first viral take on the American Revolution, and it really did go viral, and it really helped also that Thomas Paine had a way of writing. If you look back at the founders' writers, they were really excellent writers. And of course, we have Thomas Jefferson and Benjamin Franklin, who really stand out as marvelous writers. But Thomas Paine had a way of writing that, in a sense, was for the common man. And he wrote in a way that even if you read the language out loud, he might have had the audience laughing at certain points. And he made the case not that just America should be an independent, but also that the British system of government was the very problem. And the greatest problem of all was the royal brute, King George. And we needed a system of government with no king.
How did we all know that when you write it down, it stands the test of time, and we can still read it today. But anything survive? Well, let me ask you this question. Obviously, it changed minds, right? Obviously, it was a rallying cry. Obviously, once people read it, we're assuming he sort of garnered more support for the revolution?
Yes, and I think in a lot of cases, people were already having these thoughts, but people were afraid to say this in January 1776. The famous quote is, "You have to be either a fool or a fanatic to call for independence in January 1776. The official line that most people at this time still took was, "We're working to reconcile with England and to work out our differences and to make England accept and respect our rights as Englishmen." Paine takes this in a totally different direction. He says, we want nothing to do with England. We have a chance to do something totally different on this continent and to be independent. And I don't think someone like George Washington needed to be convinced of the logic of independence. He was already on the field in Boston fighting for independence. At the same time, it's worth noting that we don't actually see in George Washington's written correspondence any mention of the idea of independence until after he had read Common Sense.
Was it, this might be a rudimentary question, was it a one-time pamphlet, or was it a weekly? Was it a monthly? What was it?
That's a great question, because actually it sort of came out in a format that doesn't exist anymore. This was about a 48-page pamphlet. It was about 20,000 words, and it was a one-installment thing. That said, Paine did write an update afterwards, because when it came out in January 1776, something else happened. The timing couldn't have been better for him. We received word that the King of England had given a speech back in October 1775, basically calling for the revolution to be crushed and raising the prospect of even using mercenary soldiers against the colonists, who, of course, would end up becoming the Hessians. And so this was perfect timing, and Paine added, in a sense, a supplement to the pamphlet later on.
Are any still exist today?
Of the pamphlets? Yes. If you go to a museum, you might be able to find some early copies of Thomas Paine's Common Sense.
Interesting. You know, I want to talk about Teddy Roosevelt, but there's a bar in New York City in the Village, and it's called Marie's Crisis. Have you ever heard of this bar in the Village?
No, but I'm looking forward to hearing about it right now.
So it's a piano bar in the Village, and Broadway actors, Broadway extras, Broadway understudies, at the end of the night, they all go down to a Marie's Crisis, and they sing show tunes. And when I go to New York, I always make it a point to go to a Marie's Crisis. It's in the Village. I'm a big Broadway guy, but that building has a plaque, and it says, "This is where Thomas Paine died." And it's the building that is this Marie's Crisis, this sort of piano bar. I thought maybe if you're a Broadway guy, you might want to go take a look at where Thomas Paine passed away.
Well, that's fascinating. Actually, I did not know that piece of trivia. And Paine sort of died in obscurity in the United States in the 19th century. He lived on for a while, and in some sense, Americans didn't have the highest opinion of him in the years after the Revolution because he got involved with the French Revolution afterwards. And then he made the cardinal mistake of the era, which is he wrote a pamphlet attacking George Washington, which was the one thing that nobody was able to ever get away with. And that was, of course, later on after the independence of the country had been achieved.
Interesting. Jonathan Horn, our guest, he is a columnist for the Free Press, and I would highly recommend. It's a very enjoyable column talking about this week in American history. Reading your other column that came out, Jonathan, and is it true that Manuel Noriega was captured by the United States on the same day as Maduro was?
That is true, and I just couldn't believe the coincidence when I saw that, because, of course, when we heard the news about Maduro, so many of us thought back about Noriega and that the last time we had sort of apprehended a leader from Latin America, and then to discover that it happened the exact same day, it really, it's one of those marvelous historical coincidences.
Yeah, there's also, as you point out in your story about Roosevelt, there's a lot of similarities between what just happened and what Teddy Roosevelt tried to do in Venezuela.
That's right, and the crisis in Venezuela in late 1902 and early 1903 has been largely forgotten, but it led we hear Donald Trump talking about the Monroe Doctrine. That's how they've been rebranding the Monroe Doctrine, which famously said the Western Hemisphere was closed to European intervention. But in 1902 and 1903, it wasn't American ships blockading Venezuela. It was actually British and German ships blockading Venezuela and trying to make the dictator of Venezuela then, a man by the name of Castro, by coincidence, pay up on his debts. And Roosevelt basically gave the Germans an ultimatum. He said, if you don't arbitrate with the Venezuelans, we'll go to war with you to enforce the Monroe Doctrine. But at the same time, Roosevelt was worried about bad actors like Castro shielding themselves behind the famous Monroe Doctrine. So he issued a corollary, and that's the Roosevelt corollary. And it said basically, because we don't want European powers intervening in Latin America, sometimes, however reluctantly, the United States will play the policeman in Latin America and will intervene if needed against bad actors. And in some case, you can sort of see that logic leading to what happened just recently with the raid against Maduro.
Yeah, no, it's a really interesting take because, as the historian that you are, right, the more things change, the more they stay the same. But Roosevelt's words in the early 1900s is almost verbatim the words we're hearing out of Donald Trump today.
I think that's right. And, we're hearing about the Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine. We hear about the Roosevelt corollary to the Monroe Doctrine. And how exactly they differ is something that I think that remains to be seen. I used to work as a speechwriter for a president. If I was advising Donald Trump right now, I would suggest that in his State of the Union address, he devote at least a few lines to sort of explaining how his view of what the Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine means exactly. Because interestingly enough, it was James Monroe used an annual message to Congress to initially lay out the Monroe Doctrine. Theodore Roosevelt explained his corollary to the Monroe Doctrine in his annual message to Congress. And I think that's exactly what Donald Trump should do with his State of the Union, which in a sense is his modern version of an annual message to Congress.
Yeah, no, it's actually pretty smart to wrap yourself up in Teddy Roosevelt. You get yourself a lot of good press by wrapping yourself up with Teddy Roosevelt. Have you ever been to Sagamore Hill?
I have been. That's one of my favorite presidential houses. That's Teddy Roosevelt's house on Long Island, and of course, it's covered with all the various different animals that Roosevelt had gone hunting for. But one of the things I was amazed by as I was looking at this story about a possible war between Germany and the United States over Venezuela in 1902 and 1903 is that the Germans might have had this war plan to try to land on Long Island, and that would have actually taken their troops past Teddy Roosevelt's house. I mean, it was sort of a preposterous sounding plan, but apparently it was something they were seriously considering.
It's right there on Long Island Sound, right there in Oyster Bay, Sagamore Hill. It's a fun, great stop along the way in terms of going to visit presidential homes, and it's beautiful. It's gorgeous. It's right there on the water, and that would have been a heck of a story, not to mention it. All right, Jonathan Horn, you were on the show last week with the book, The Fate of the Generals, MacArthur, Wainwright, and the Epic Battle for the Philippines. That's in fine bookstores, wherever you can find a good book. The Fate of the Generals. We got great response for that, Jonathan. And then, of course, your columns in the Free Press. Thanks for checking in. Thanks for making time for us, and I'm sure we'll talk to you down the road. Have a good night.
Sounds great. Thank you for having me.
You got it. Jonathan Horn, speechwriter for the Bush administration, great historian, fun speechwriter, and obviously a lover of history, has a column in the Free Press called This Week in the American History. And it's a great, if you love history, it's a great read, because each week he sort of does a whole newsletter on This Week in American History. And he talked about Thomas Paine, and this week was about Teddy Roosevelt and the connections between then and now. Jonathan Horn, our guest. America at Night, back in a moment.
America at Night with McGraw Millhaven. Coming to you from the heart of the nation, this is America at Night with McGraw Millhaven.
Hey, there are some people who say that drinking whole milk is actually better for you in terms of obesity than fat-free milk, right? Some people say, oh, I drink fat-free milk because I don't want to drink the fat, and then you get fat. But the other side of it says, well, wait a minute, hold on a second. If you drink the whole milk, the fully leaded milk with no added sugars, not like chocolate milk or strawberry milk, but real fully leaded milk, that you'll be filled up and that your body will process the fat and you won't look for food and empty calories somewhere else. It's actually an interesting argument. The reason why I bring it up is, who says Congress can't pass laws and get along? They passed let me get this right, the Whole Milk for Healthy Kids Act, and President Trump signed it in a bill signing on Wednesday. They have said that now school lunch programs, the National School Lunch Program, will be allowed to serve whole milk, along with 2% fat milk, along with skim milk and low fat, as well as soy milk, non-dairy milk that meets the nutritional standards of milk. You think this is a big deal? You're laughing at this? This change affects nearly 30 million school kids, and that during the Obama years, Michelle Obama, in her healthy initiatives, kicked whole milk out of schools, and they're bringing whole milk back to schools. And I am a lover of milk, and I remember a good glass of ice cold milk as a kid. And then at some point I went to 2%. And then 1 point I drink a lot of fat-free milk, though I have plenty of fat on me, if you get my drift. Maybe I should switch to whole milk, just like the kids. But, all right, obesity being a problem in schools, maybe they start drinking some whole milk. Oddly enough, conventional wisdom saying it'll make it worse, but it just might make it better, right? Put the whole milk back in school, and maybe the kids will, because when it was there, kids were skinnier. You took it away, they got fatter. Stay right there. America at Night. Bill on the road. Where is Bill Clevlin? We'll find out after this. America at Night. Back in a moment.
Coming to you from the heart of the nation, this is America at Night with McGraw Millhaven. Join the nightly conversation, America at Night, with McGraw Millhaven.
All right, let's get to it. It's Thursday night, and every Thursday night we check in with Bill Clevlin. Bill on the road. Bill, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for checking in.
McGraw, how you doing?
We're doing good. All right, let's get right to it. You had so much fun in Palm Springs, you decided to stay?
Yeah, well, why not? I mean, the rest of you guys are freezing your butts off all over the country. I thought, well, it's sunny and 82 here. Why would I leave? I may never leave.
Bill on the road, week 17, Palm Springs. All right, good to know. Yeah, you're no fool, right?
No,
Come January, you're hanging out in Palm Springs. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So you were when we first caught up with you, you were somewhere in Texas, and then you were in New Mexico, and then you ended up in Pasadena, and you've been in Palm Springs the last couple of weeks. Now, what kind of trouble are you getting to in Palm Springs?
Well, the first thing I have to say, you know what I did? Let me ask you, McGraw, do you like taco sauce by chance? Do you know? Do you make tacos at the Millhaven?
Yeah. I mean, you know, I get the mild when I go to Taco Bell. Is that considered taco sauce?
I don't think that's taco. That's not what we're talking about here. So a long time ago, when I was in high school, we used to have tacos like any family would have, and we had this brand of taco sauce. It was called Pico Pica. That was the name of the brand. They make it somewhere here in Southern California. And whenever I come back, I try to buy a bottle or so to take with me. But I think I may have a problem. So every time I go to the grocery store, I'm telling you, I love this stuff. And every time I go into the grocery store for something, I meander over to the Hispanic food aisle, and I wind up buying another bottle. I swear to God, I have like 9 or 10 bottles of this stuff in my car now. And every time I make a wide turn in the car, you hear the bottles clanking in the car. I'm addicted to the tacos because you can't buy anywhere else. Do you have any food items like that?
I don't. It used to be White Castle. Every time my father came to fly out and visit my sister out in California or out in Phoenix, he would bring a bag of White Castle, and he would stink up the whole plane on the way out to Scottsdale. and back in the old days, before they had like New York style pizza in Arizona, he would bring a couple of pieces, a couple of pies along the way. And then people used to do that with Coors, right? When you could only buy Coors in Colorado, they would find out people going to Colorado. Hey, bring me back a case of Coors or something.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'm just a weirdo. So that's the first thing I've been up to, collecting taco sauce here in Palm Springs, California.
Inquiring minds want to know. Yes.
Yeah. So this today was really, really cool. I went to a place in a state, I guess you could call it, a sprawling property of 200 acres. And somebody told me about this on Monday. Before Monday, I had no idea this place even existed. And as you know, I have a book out on presidential road trips, presidential historic sites across the country. And they're like, oh, if you like presidential history, you have to go to this place. And it's called Sunnylands. And I thought, Sunnylands? That sounds like a theme park or something. What kind of thing? And they're like, no, you have to go. So I checked it out, and I went there today. So it was the home of Walter and Leonore Annenberg. Do you know who these people are by chance?
Who is this?
It's okay to say no. Walter and Leonore Annenberg.
Well, there's like an Annenberg Foundation that I've heard of, but no, I haven't heard of these people.
Okay, well, neither had I before Monday, so don't feel too bad. So these people were Walter inherited a publishing company back in the 50s from I believe it was his father, and he became very, 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 very successful because of the creation of one particular publication. You want to take a guess? It was in 1952 when this thing debuted.
I want to say Playboy.
That's a good guess. TV Guide.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And this guy, this is crazy. So I looked this up actually tonight. At its peak, TV Guide was making between $600,000 and $1 million profit each week. So you can imagine how much money this guy was cranking out. But yes, you mentioned the foundation. They were very charitable, but they had this place here in Rancho Mirage, so about 30 minutes from Palm Springs. And they built this winter retreat called Sunnylands back in 1966. So 200 acres, and they wanted to turn it into like the Camp David of the West, because they would mingle with all of these high-profile people, a lot of politicians. 8 different presidents had been there. The Eisenhowers played golf there. Gerald Ford and Nixon would come and hang out. The Reagans would be there almost every New Year's Eve. They'd have like a big party, the New Year's Eve party. The Reagans always would attend. Frank Sinatra got married there. Queen Elizabeth had been there. They did a lot of like political stuff. So George Bush Sr. used their home to host the Japanese prime minister at some point in the early 90s. I mentioned Nixon. Obama hosted the Chinese president there for talks at one point. And
so it really is Camp David of the West.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's so cool. People can tour the home now. Both of the husband and wife they've passed on now, and the home is or the estate, I guess, whatever the property is in some sort of a trust. So they still use it to do. There's a public area where you can come for free and kind of walk through some gardens. But they use it for retreats still. They do 14, 15 of these retreats each year with, high profile people and companies and things like that. There's a 9-hole golf course beautiful views. The house is huge, tons of artwork. Like there's a Picasso in there and a Van Gogh, and it's unbelievable. And when you walk into the room where they have all of their photos of the people who have been there, and the little autographs and things like that, you are just absolutely amazed. And I had absolutely no idea this place existed before Monday.
And what's the name of it?
It's called Sunnylands.
Sunnylands.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yeah. You think about TV.
Yeah.
You think about TV Guide for a second. TV Guide. That's how you knew what was on TV, and you can only imagine the advertisements. Right, everybody would sit down. Let's see what's on TV tonight. So every advertiser would be would want to be on a Tuesday or a Friday or had a couple articles in there. You want to promote some new TV show, you put it in TV Guide. Talk about a license to print money. The TV Guide, right? Holy mackerel!
And that is exactly what I told the tour guide today as I was walking around and just looking at the china and everything that they had in this house. I was like, these people were printing money back in the day from TV Guide. Unbelievable. And you're right. Everybody wanted to be in TV Guide. And there's a great episode of Seinfeld where George's father gets his TV Guide stolen from Elaine or something. I can't remember that one. But yeah, no, really cool place. Really cool place.
All right. Did you have a book signing there?
Oh gosh, that would be awesome. If I got a book signing at that place. But I did a book signing today in Palm Desert, California, at the Palm Desert Public Library, which was awesome. It was the first one that I've done for this new book. I write these travel guides, McGraw. This is the 7th one that I've done, and I don't particularly love writing them, but what I do enjoy is putting together these presentations about all the things that I learned and producing, some video content and sharing stories with people at these, engagements. And I do them at, libraries and museums and for different organizations and things like that. And they're a lot of fun because I really like interacting with folks and telling the stories. And so, so I had the first one today. It went great, except, here's the deal. There's always like one, and it's always a woman. I don't know why. There's always some lady, older lady in the audience at every single one of these with a yellow notepad taking notes. She too cheap to buy my book, but she will write down everything that I mention and it's weird. I feel like I'm giving some sort of like a college lecture, because I'm up in front of the group and there's lady taking notes everything that I write. And but no, they were all very nice, and it was great. I'm happy to be back doing those.
All right, so the book is Presidential Road Trips, 100 Places to Explore and Experience the History of American Presidents. You did one, as you said, in Palm Springs, but you also, when you walked into the Clinton Library, it was there in the Clinton Library as you were dropping hints all over the place to buy your book. Tell me about these wind turbines you saw.
Yeah, so anybody that comes to Palm Springs, the first thing you'll notice if you're traveling in from, Los Angeles or Riverside County, once you start to get close to Palm Springs, you will notice an abundance of these I call them windmills, but wind turbines. And these things, I got to tell you, I'm not the biggest fan of these things in most settings, but out in the desert, like kind of up against the mountains, they're pretty cool looking. And at one point when they started doing this, like back in the 1980s, they had, I think, as many as like 4,000 of these things, if you can imagine, just scattered all about, the desert here. And now they're down to about, I think, 700 of these things. The biggest one, I think, now is like 300 feet tall, if you can even imagine. I don't know if you've ever been driving on the road in McGraw, taking a road trip, and have you ever seen somebody like transporting one of the I don't know what you would call it. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like, have you ever seen that? It's unbelievable to see one of these things coming down the highway. They're gigantic.
I've seen some windmills up close, right? The old ones and the new ones. I have not seen one being driven on a semi down the highway, though.
Oh no, I'm telling you, it is unbelievable. You're like, what in the world? Oh, look at that! But they are so wild, like, to see in person. And there's a whole Palm Springs does a windmill tour. And you sign up, and I haven't done it. I probably won't do it, but you can do it as an attraction here, and they take you on to one of these. I guess you would call it like a windmill farm or whatever.
Yeah.
And you get up close, and you learn all about them. But I'm telling you, when you're standing right underneath them, it is unbelievable how gigantic these things are, and they're getting bigger and bigger because apparently, and I may have this a little bit wrong, but apparently the newer ones and the more efficient ones are the bigger ones. So like back in the day, I mentioned there's thousands of them. They were smaller and not quite as efficient. So they are well, and you cannot miss it. And that's how you know you are getting close to Palm Springs when you see all these gigantic windmills coming down the highway.
I took a trip up. I took a trip to Minneapolis a couple years ago, and going through northern Iowa and then southern Minnesota. You sort of come over the top of the hill, and it's sort of this sort of prairie land, this vista, and you just see hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of windmills. It actually is kind of cool, and I don't know why people even old Dutch style windmills are cool. I mean, right? The little housekeepers in there with the nice little picket fence and the nice little mullions in the window. Yeah, it's a nice little deal. All right, good.
Making fresh cheese in there, whatever they do. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh.
Are you staying in Palm Springs or have you exhausted your welcome there? Are they going to kick you out anytime soon? What's the plan for next week?
Oh no, I love it. I think I might run for mayor. I think this place is great. I love it. I love the whole Palm Springs, Coachella Valley. It's right now when it gets to be about April. I'll probably check the heck out of here because it's going to be hot. But no, I'm going to hang around for just a little bit longer. I mentioned last week trying to get into the house that Frank Sinatra owned. I talked to a guy that runs it, so keep your fingers crossed tomorrow or maybe over the weekend I'll get a chance to go check that out, and checked out some other celebrity homes this week. You know, folks who lived here, Marilyn Monroe and some others, lots of famous people from like the 50s and 60s.
The website to follow Bill when he's not on the air is BillOnTheRoad.com. I can't get the TV Guide story out of my head. Right? The guy's made, what'd you say, $750,000 a week, and then cable's invented, and they have the channel guide, and his profits go to zero. I mean, think about that for a second, right?
He invested pretty well. I think he did okay for himself.
Gotta love him. Bill Clevlin, be safe. Thanks for checking in. We'll talk with you next Thursday. Thanks, man.
Sounds good. See you.
There you go. BillOnTheRoad.com. BillOnTheRoad.com. Bill Clevlin, our go-to travel guru. Hey, stay right there. When we come back, we will explain to you why there just might not be a reason to play this year's baseball season, and they just might as well give the trophy right now before the first pitch is thrown. America at Night. Back in a moment.
Live from coast to coast, this is America at Night with McGraw Millhaven. Relax. You're listening to America at Night with McGraw Millhaven.
All right, so we've got just a couple of minutes left, and then open phones next hour. So why should we cancel the baseball season? Well, let me tell you why. Kyle Tucker, who is considered one of the best players in Major League Baseball since 2020. He is ranked 9th in the majors with 143 OPS. He's one of 6 players to have at least 100 home runs, 100 stolen bases, 300 walks. He has the second lowest strikeout rate of anyone in the group. Only 10 position players have more wins against replacement than Tucker's 25.2 over the last 6 years. He was drafted by the Astros, traded to the Cubs, and was a free agent. And it was announced today that Kyle Tucker has signed with the Los Angeles Dodgers. You ready for the price tag? 4 years, $240 million. Now, I hate doing math live on the radio, but 4 years goes into 240 60 times. Kyle Tucker will be making $60 million a year for the next 4 years from the Dodgers. There was rumors that he was going to the Mets. Apparently the Blue Jays were in on it too, but 4 years, $260 million for the team that has already won the World Series the last 2 years. And now they're adding the best player in baseball. However, he has been getting injured quite a bit these last couple of years. This year against the Cubs, he was injured. He hurt his thumb. He had a hairline fracture, I think, in his thumb, and then he came back and he pulled a leg muscle, and so he did not have as great of a year as one would expect. For 4 years, $240 million. But nonetheless, they're going to have Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, Kyle Tucker, 2 World Series. Might be time to just break up the Dodgers. Holy mackerel, Kyle Tucker to the Dodgers. That was announced tonight. Stay right there. We got open phones next hour. We got a couple people lined up, but a couple more phone lines open for you. Our executive director tonight is Alex Hinton. Our engineer tonight is Richard Good. I'm McGraw Millhaven. Stay right there. Open phones coming up next hour. This is America at Night on Westwood One.
Westwood One presents America at Night. Here's your host, McGraw Millhaven.
Little Rhythm of the River, never hurt anybody. I love that tune. You know, when I was getting ready for the show, I was picking out the theme music, and I played the theme music for my sister. And she says, no, that's not going to work. And I said, well, it's too late. You really don't have an option. You don't have an opinion, and you don't have a vote. I'm going with this. Rhythm on the River. Love that song. All right, welcome back. It's hour number 3. It's Thursday night. Man, we've had a fun show tonight. Lots of great topics, lots of great guests. Can't get any more diverse than what we've gotten. The phone numbers are open phones, and here's how we do it. Open phones, 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. It's a Thursday night, and in the middle of the country, it is going to get chilly, and maybe a little snow dusting in the Midwest, and it's going to be cold and wind chill. So winter is upon us. Hopefully that'll take some of the energy out of these protests in Minneapolis, but we'll just have to wait and see. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. Let's go to line number 2 tonight. We'll check in Catherine in Indian Wells, California. You'll be first up tonight. Welcome to America at Night.
Oh, hello. Am I on?
Catherine from Indian Wells, California, you are on the air.
Hello, McGraw. Thank you for taking my call. Indian Wells is the Beverly Hills of Coachella Valley, which is Palm Springs area.
Oh, nice.
I've enjoyed the enthusiasm of your guest both last week and tonight, who's going around Palm Springs. I'll keep it brief, but I wanted to add a comment about Sunnyland and the Annenberg estate.
Sure.
I'm not boasting, but the reason I've lived here this month is 43 years full time. We call it in the desert. Anyway, there's a lot of great history here. Not boasting, but my largest client was our late President Gerald R. Ford and First Lady Betty Ford, and I'm not even a Republican. Anyway.
Well, first of all, feel free to boast, but what were they a client of?
I was a portfolio manager, financial advisor for 37 years until I became disabled about 10 years ago. Okay. I might be an old lady now, but I never dreamt I would not still be in my role. Anyway, not seeking sympathy. Anyway, the greatness of the desert here is, as your guest has learned, Marilyn Monroe statue, whatever, yada, yada. But my comment, I try to be brief, thank you, McGraw, is the one point, respectfully to your guest host, that he left out about the Annenberg estate, and I'm not Jewish, but my mother used to say we're all a little bit Jewish, is that Walter Annenberg established that golf course because Jews were not allowed.
Oh, Jews.
And I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. So there was another golf course in town that didn't allow Jewish members?
Well, the whole desert is a golf the haven, and of all the golf courses, Thunderbird, all of them, Jews were not allowed.
Mm.
So Annenberg established. It's now called Sunnyland, but it's like a kind of a memorial sort of a
what's
thing.
What's the name of the golf course that he started?
I think it was just Annenberg.
Oh, okay.
It was the Annenberg. It is now. It's just the Annenberg estate. It turned into Sunnyland as a kind of a what do you call it? Like where people can visit and you can hold events.
It's a retreat.
There
it's a retreat place. It's a retreat place.
Yes, yes. But my main point was that it was he was groundbreaking.
Yeah, I would think so.
He established it for Jews. That's
all right.
what I wanted to say. Thank you for taking my call.
Catherine in Indian Wells, California, thank you for checking in. Call back anytime. Have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Let's go to another Catherine, this time in Vancouver, Canada. Catherine in Vancouver, Canada. Welcome to America at Night.
Hi, McGraw.
Hello.
Oh, man, you got me last night, and I wasn't able to call in, but you were talking about Tony Dungy. You were thinking about all these stories, and then you were talking about baseball, and I go, okay, that's it. So I'm calling in because I have a baseball story, so I want to see if you can tell me a Tony Dungy story if I tell you my baseball story.
Here's a Tony Dungy story I heard the other day. So Mike Tomlin, the coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, right, just resigned, right? He just stepped down after 18 years. And there's something in the NFL called the Rooney Rule, in which when a team is trying to find the next coach and they're interviewing for the next coach, they have to, it's like a gentleman's agreement within the other owners, that they must interview a minority as part of the process. And 18 years ago, after Bill Cowher retired as the coach of the Steelers went looking for a head coach. And they were ready to name Russ Grimm, who was an offensive lineman. They were going to name him as the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Tony Dungy calls up the owners so the story goes, he calls up the owners of the Steelers and says, hey, don't do me the favor, do yourself a favor and interview this guy named Mike Tomlin. I'm telling you, this is your head coach. Well, Mike Tomlin happens to be African-American. And so they interviewed Mike Tomlin. He blew him away in the meeting. And instead of hiring Russ Grimm, they hired Mike Tomlin on the advice of Tony Dungy and then propelled him to one of the greatest NFL coaching careers of all time.
Now that's cool.
So there you go. There's my Tony Dungy story of the night.
When people trust other people because they know integrity.
Yes.
When they see it, they know it.
What's your baseball story?
My girlfriend, she was sick, and I couldn't get a hold of her, and I'm like, what's going on? So it ended up she was having cancer. She had cancer in the bowel, and I phoned her dad, and I haven't been able to get a hold of her. What's going on? So he told me, and so it ended up where he asked me to call him a couple times a week because he was shut in. He was lonely, and so I did that, and after a year, he tells me that like he was coaching baseball for years in Pitt Meadows. And he's telling me this story about Larry Walker, and I'm going, are you kidding me? He's going on now. He was Larry Walker's coach.
Back in the day. A long time ago. A long time ago.
Yeah.
He was Larry Walker.
Before he was a teen. Yeah. So I talked to Kellie after her operation, and she was going on. She said, yeah, we used to pick him up all the time, and we'd drive him to the baseball diamond, and he'd always tease her. he would always tease her, "Do you want my autograph yet? Do you want my autograph?" All the time. He knew that he was going to be big. He said, "You're going to want it one day." And no, he wouldn't give up. He did this for years.
That's a great story.
Yeah.
Larry Walker ended up in the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a great story. Catherine in Vancouver, Canada. He's also a Canadian, so that jives with the story. Catherine, great story. Thanks for checking in, as always.
I also want to say his dad's a nice guy.
All right, there you go.
Dad.
All right, so Catherine, thanks. Scott in St. Louis, Paul in Boise, Idaho. We got to take a quick break. We'll come back, check in with you guys. We also have a couple lines open now that the Catherines have moved through. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729, America at Night. We're back in a moment.
Join the conversation. Call 844-2-McGraw. America at Night with McGraw Millhaven. You're listening to America at Night with McGraw Millhaven.
All right, back to the phones we go. It's open phones, 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. We've got Scott in St. Louis. Scott, welcome to America at Night.
Yeah. I wanted to tell you who Benny Morris is. He's a Jewish Israeli Zionist historian who documented how in 1948 the Israelis massacred and raped Palestinians. They did the same thing that Hamas did on October 7th.
Well, just out of curiosity, why are you calling me up and telling me about this?
Well, last night, the conservative Canadian called, and he said, that Hamas, killed all these Israelis and kidnapped them, and they probably did some rape too, just for no reason at all. They just decided to do it. No. Since 1948, these people have been killing each other. And Bibi Netanyahu is just as evil as Hamas.
Okay, Scott, I thank you for the phone call. I don't want to go down this rabbit hole tonight. I don't have the mental bandwidth to do it. I thank you for the phone call. I don't know enough about this man, what you're talking about, so I can't comment on it. Thank you very much. If it was a topic of conversation, but I'm gonna hold off another few times and say thank you. I really don't want to go there, but thank you very much for the phone call, Scott. Let's try.
Okay.
Thank you, Dennis in Fort Lee, New Jersey. Dennis, welcome to America at Night. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, how about Denise?
Oh, Denise. How about Denise? I'm sorry.
The song that is your title song, "Rhythm on the River," actually came from a movie with Bing Crosby, and I have a photographic memory. So when I heard the song at first, I knew it came from that movie. But I got to tell you that in 1970, when I came back from overseas, I was in the Army. I did nothing but watch movies. I probably watched 3 or 4 movies a night, and that was one of the movies I watched. "Rhythm on the River." It was a fun movie.
Yeah, you know what? I go ahead. I'm sorry.
And the song is great.
So I found that song. It must have been. I saw a clip of that movie or something, and then I did a little research, and if the name escapes me. I'll get it on the break, but it was redone in the 70s. Somebody took it, and there's a album called Rhythm of the River, and it's a wonderful jazz album. And they sort of did an updated version of the song, and that's the one we have as the opening theme music.
I love it. As a matter of fact, I have a band, so I might just look for that arrangement and see if I can find the arrangement. Sometimes you can find oddball stuff like that on the internet.
Yeah, I love the brush on the drum. For some reason, that's just that's a cool sound in that song, right? It's just sort of light and airy and breezy. And, I'm in St. Louis, right? The confluence of the Mississippi and the Missouri River. So, right, the rhythm on the river. So that was sort of the whole inside story as to why I picked it. Plus, I like the song.
That's cool. Very cool. Very cool.
You got it. Have a good night. Thanks for checking in. And thank you for your service to the country. All right, we're going to take a quick break. You want to take a quick break? We'll do that, and then we will come back. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. I feel compelled to at least make a comment about that phone call while I passed on it. Look, I know there are lots of atrocities, lots of terrible things. The Hatfields and the McCoys. It's never ending, right? They did 1948, 1962, 1912, 1875, 19... Yeah, I get it. I get it. I get it. It's at some point, right? Never mind. You can't win for losing. I come from a long line of proud Irishmen who never let anything go, ever. And if you're still angry that your sister borrowed your white turtleneck in 1978 and didn't ask you, and that's why you're no longer talking to your sister, maybe it's time to sort of let it go. And I hate it when people say let it go, right? Because everybody wants everybody else to let it go. And I'm not comparing borrowing a turtleneck to the atrocities of some homeland or something, but I mean we've got to let things go. We acknowledge them, apologize for them, understand them, put them in their context, and let it go. I don't I don't blame South Carolina for starting the Civil War when they started bombing Fort Sumner. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. America at Night. Open phones. Give us a call. Back in a moment.
Join the conversation. Call 844-2-McGraw. America at Night with McGraw Millhaven.
All right, Denise, I did a little checking on the break. The album is Rhythm on the River. It came out in 2011. Harry Allen is the saxophonist, and it's his band. It's his trio. It's his work, Rhythm on the River. And the album is fantastic. It's got... every song has a sort of musical, watery, rivery theme to it all, and it's called Rhythm on the River, and they play Rhythm on the River, and that's where our theme song comes from. And I will say this, that one of my favorite parts of the Larry King Show was, and I got to do a little more research on this. Maybe you guys would know who listened to Larry King back in the day, right? Because this is the old Larry King Show, and then Jim Bohannon and Rich, and then me. And so I think it was Friday nights, but it could have been every night. He played the theme song to Duke Ziebert's, right? He would go to Duke Ziebert's, which was, Duke Ziebert was a bartender in Washington, D.C., and he would go and he'd play this, I'm headed to Duke Zebert's. And I guess after the show, he would head over to the cocktail lounge and talk with bartender Duke Zebert's. And so I'm trying to, as I, settle in on the show here, I want to try and get a little theme song. So when I go to Joe's, I get a little theme song to go to. It's no Duke Zebert's, but it's Joe's. It's the best I can do. Let's go to David in San Francisco. David, welcome to America at Night. Open phones. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks, McGraw. Yeah, and I'm glad you were just talking about Larry King. Man, I used to call him a lot.
Is that right?
I was living in Colorado at the time, in Appleton, Colorado.
Okay.
Tiny town out near the Utah line. Is there an archive of his stuff, the radio show?
That's a really good question. I'd have to ask some people at Westwood One. Somebody called up and said that there's some of it. I know some people in Westwood One have sort of mentioned to me that they have some, but I don't know if there's a definitive, like Johnny Carson has the definitive tapes of Johnny Carson. I don't know. I mean, that would be some library if you could get your hands on Larry King's library. For that matter, I don't even know if Jim Bohannon has a library. Well, I should do a little digging on that. But short answer is I don't know.
Yeah, Bohannon had a pretty complete podcast, just like Rich did.
Is that right?
Yeah, it's funny. When I moved out to San Francisco here, Larry was doing a live broadcast from one of the hotels out here, and he was interviewing Carlos Santana. And I walked up to introduce myself, to Larry, and they thought I was coming up to talk to Carlos. But, and Carlos is a good guy, too. But, I was more interested in Larry. But, my interest is, I heard you talking about the dietary changes. Do you know, is that something that Project 2025 has foisted on us?
I don't. Well, for those who weren't listening, it was they changed. They're now allowing whole milk into the National School Lunch Program, and so I don't. I'm not. I mean, I know what Project 2025 is. I haven't read it cover to cover. I don't know what the chapters on dietary restrictions for school lunches were, but all I know is what I read today is that it was apparently a bipartisan legislation to get whole milk back into school lunches. And apparently during the Obama years, Michelle Obama and her Get Healthy kick, they took it out officially, and now they're putting it back in.
Well, we were, as kids, my parents fed us whole milk, and I enjoyed it just fine. But as I learned later, as pollution has spread around the country and they've gotten into these factory farms, the whole milk is, if a cow can be out there in the prairie or in the pasture or something like that and get some exercise, it's good for them to, it makes better milk. But if the cows are indoors all the time, living in some tight stall, the milk can actually get tainted. And so to just blanket say that these factory farms can start selling it to the kids, it can lead to a lot of infections.
Well, what's the difference? What's the difference between a factory farm cow giving whole milk to the kids or skim milk to the kids?
Well, I think it's the fat. That the fat can hold the, it can actually have pus in it.
Well,
and,
but they're also offering 2% milk to the kids too. So there is fat in the 2%
right.
milk. Yeah.
Yeah, so it'd be only 2% to pus. So,
well, okay, but I mean, I don't think anyone's worried about the safety of the milk supply in the United States. And of course, if there was some type of outbreak or some type of issue, I'm sure there are safeguards in place. But I think the bigger question is, and it's an interesting one, right? If you feed kids whole milk, which is what I grew up on. I was skinny as a rail, and I drank whole milk almost until I was in college, before I ever even thought about skim milk or 2% milk. And I was skinny as a rail. I only started gaining weight when I started drinking 2% or skim milk. And now, as an adult, you drink skim milk, and you're still putting on weight. But there's a right. If you drink if you drink the whole milk, you're more satisfied and therefore not looking for, calories after you drink the whole milk.
Yeah, I was skinny too. I was like 118 pounds till I was like, I don't know, 18 years old or something like that. Yeah, it's
right.
And we were, I hadn't even conceived of that.
Yeah,
hey,
but as a growing boy, right, men, boys and girls, they need fat in their diet, and by taking the fat out of their diet with the milk, I think there are some reputable doctors and scientists and nutritionists who would tell you, milk for teenagers and young kids is actually very important to have fat in it.
It can, yeah, and that's if it's authentic,
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's free range chicken versus a chicken from a factory. I can't tell the difference when I'm eating my omelet.
Well, you can't necessarily, but the nutrition base is definitely different, and the idea that we're just allowing 10,000 chickens to be brought up in the dark, it's kind of ghastly in a way. Hey, one last thing. I was paying attention to Minnesota today, and they were saying that ICE officers are only getting 47 days of training. And
I heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty stupid. You wonder I used to study lawsuits, and that seems like an intentional negligence. And
well, I think the 47 is in conjunction with President Trump being the 47th president of the United States. So that's it's sort of turning the knife. And, sort of trolling the left and all of that. But, David, thanks for the phone call. Appreciate it in San Francisco. Paul in Boise, Idaho. Paul, you've been holding on way too long. Thanks for checking in. Welcome to America at Night.
Okay. Thanks for taking my call. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that and there's some people out there that probably know this already, but I was working in my parents' used bookstore, and somebody came in with a box of periodicals from Great Britain. And at the time, it was in Monterey where the store was. And so I was going through them and came across one for George Orwell. There was a special report on him that he helped write. And it was about how he wrote and where he got the ideas for 1984 and Animal Farm. And he got most of the ideas for the two of them, primarily for 1984, was from Joseph Goebbels, who was the propaganda minister for the Third Reich.
Right.
And anything that was played over the radio, he had to give it the stamp of approval. And also was J. Edgar Hoover was the other idea that he got the idea for the book from, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Yeah. What's interesting is...
It was about 1948, 49 when that was written, I believe.
Well, yeah, that's right.
After World War II.
Yeah, he took 1948 and switched the 8 and the 4 and then called it 1984. What's interesting about George Orwell and 1984, which I have not read since 1983, 1982. I think we had to read it in one of my English classes somewhere along the line. But, people talk about Big Brother, and you have to wonder how many people know that when they talk about Big Brother actually comes from the novel 1984, right? Paul,
yeah.
Thanks for checking in. Also, the phrase catch-22, right? Catch-22. A lot of people always talk about catch-22, catch-22. But do they really know that it came from a book called Catch-22? And do they understand the origins of that, right? Everyone talks about, Big Brother. Oh, that's Big Brother. Where'd that come from? I don't know. It's just Big Brother. Right? It's these iconic phrases and these iconic themes in some of these great historical novels, right? These great novels that have become historic, and the lexicon has been changed forever because of it. And Big Brother is one of those that comes from 1984. So anyway, thanks for the phone call, Paul. Appreciate it. All right, it's America at Night. 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. We got time for a couple of more phone calls. Got a couple of lines open for you, whatever you want to talk about. It's a Thursday night here at America at Night. Back in a moment.
America at Night with McGraw Millhaven. Call 844-2-McGraw and be a part of the conversation on America at Night with McGraw Millhaven.
Just remember, who controls the past controls the future. Right? One of those sayings from 1984. Right? What was the other one I was talking? Big Brother, and then what's the other one? The other one is there's another one from 1984 that I just thought of that just escaped me. The other one is Catch-22, which is I haven't read that book in 150 years, and it was I might have read it when I was too young. I didn't quite get it, right? But the idea of Catch-22 is the pilot is this. Now this is confusing. He's a pilot in World War II, and if you want to keep flying, you're insane because you might die. And if you want to keep flying, well, if you don't want to fly anymore as a pilot in World War II, right? If you're like, I don't want to fly anymore, this is crazy. I might kill myself, or I might die, right? That's a sane reaction. Right? That's sane. A sane person would think that. And so if you don't want to fly anymore, you're sane. Therefore, you can fly. But if you're like, hey, great, I want to fly, then you're insane. So that's the Catch-22, right? No matter what you think, they figured out a way to keep you flying. And every time you get close to the amount of emissions that would then qualify you to go home, they move the goalposts, and then therefore you have to keep on flying. But I don't want to fly. Well, that means but you have to keep flying. Oh, I don't want to fly. Well, that means you're sane, and so you're sane, so keep flying. Hence the Catch-22. So there you go. All right, 1-844-2-McGraw, 1-844-262-4729. A couple of checks of the news around the country. I've always wondered, and I thought of this as a business idea, and I actually thought this was such a crazy idea that I thought of it, and then I was like, so who would ever do this? I thought that one should create an app in which create a profile, right? So your husband dies, your spouse dies, your best friend dies, but you miss them. You miss texting them. You miss, right? Because you text them. So what if you were to create an app in which, even though your best friend died, you could still text him? And so some computer-generated text would then come back to you, be like, hey, what'd you think of the game today? Or, hey, how was your date Saturday night, right? And you would carry on a conversation with your best friend who had died, but this computer would then pretend to be your best friend and then read your text, and then you have this continuing conversation with this robot who you deem to be your friend. I actually thought about that. I was like, well, who would do that? Well, you know what? That's what people are doing all the time now. They're having really real relationships with artificial intelligence. And there's a voice-to-text chatbot that people get into a relationship with, and it's called Matthew AI. And you pay $39 a month, and Matthew AI is available 24/7. He speaks in dozens of languages, and people turn to this artificial intelligence response computer for all kinds of problems. They're your personal assistant. They're your therapist. They're your girlfriend. They're your best friend. Hey, what should I have for dinner tonight? How about pizza and pizza? I don't feel like pizza. How about spaghetti and meatballs? Sure. All right. Good one. I thought of that. And I was like, well, who would do that? It's the craziest thing in the world. People are doing it. People are paying $39 to have a computer computer be your friend. We are in a weird place. All right, that's going to do it for us. Tomorrow on the show, we've got TV exec for a day. Also, who else do we have tomorrow night? Let me take a quick peek here while I have you. Monday on the program, we have got a gentleman who spent 444 days being held captive by the Iranians in 1979 and 1980. He was one of the 52. So we'll get his thoughts on what he sees going on in Iran. He's also a big supporter and works for Folds of Honor. So we'll talk about that on Monday. And then tomorrow on the show, Theo Lewis Clark, television exec for a day. We also got hour number 1 situated tomorrow night, but I can't, I forget what it was. I forget what I had for breakfast this morning. Hey, thanks for listening. Our executive director is Alex Hinton. Our engineer tonight is Richard Good. I'm McGraw Millhaven, and this is America at Night on Westwood One.